Okay. Well, thanks for coming back from over there, and we will continue now. I promised that I would give Arif the mic first when we start out. So, brother.
Thank you, sir. I just have a suggestion to all of us. If we have a time, or if we can make a time, at least 1 hour monthly to take a walk in city of Hamtramck as a group. And otherwise, I don't see that will even now youth make ever this walking in city in life. Do you agree with that? We are around about the community already. There's 30 of us here, and plus our families, at least 100 people can walk in once. Let's make it Hamtramck alive. Thank you.
Right.
Excuse me. I read a book before. Some went to some place where they've been known already, but they got stoned. 2 people been walking, they got stoned. One of them, and the other one asked, "What did happen? We think we're doing right." He said, "No, we didn't do enough. So let's make this happen till somebody not stone us."
Very good.
Thank you. Of course, when he says stoned, he doesn't mean Michael Phelps. Very important to realize that. Different kind of stoning.
You're welcome to join us. Acts 29 walks every Friday. About 10 of us walk through every block watch when we segregate the whole city to find out what we can do, what we can help, who we can meet, how we can pray.
Good.
Every Friday at 8:30, is that right?
8:30?
8:30 in the morning.
8:30 on Fridays?
That's my business hours.
Well, at least it doesn't conflict with us Wednesday evenings for with the Great Decision series. And I guess I'm sorry to tell you, Reverend Sharon, that with all these people coming along, it's not going to be the same as your date walking around. They're a little bit more crowded now. So. Okay. One of the things that obviously brought many of you here tonight is the context of the ordinance regarding sexual orientation, which was defeated in November, correct?
And other things.
And other things, but that seems to be sort of the linchpin of interest, particularly in the group from what I surmise. Tonight is not an evening where we're going to resurrect, if you will, or rehash the divisiveness or the debate per se. The election is over, and now begins a new phase in Hamtramck and of cooperation based on what it appears to be this interest in common ground. What I would like to do, though, is take the memory of the ordinance, and for most of you who were either involved actively or in a more passive role, to remember the debates, the discussions, the activities that transpired around this ordinance, and ask yourself what could have been done differently, not necessarily in the pursuit of changing votes or all, but it seems to me from speaking to many of you, particularly over the refreshments, is that for many of you there's the policy issue behind the ordinance on either side of the issue, but that perhaps one of the more divisive issues was the process. Is that true? Is it the way that things were handled leading up to the election, which were in many ways more divisive than the actual issue? Let's start with that.
There were a lot of people against the ordinance because they interpreted it as a gay rights ordinance and they are against homosexuality. But there were other people who were concerned about the process of how the ordinance was put into law. As part of the Human Relations Commission, I know that this ordinance has been initiated in several other communities across the state. And in many ordinances, it involves the Human Relations Commission. In this particular town, in Hamtramck, the ordinance was rewritten to exclude the Human Relations Commission and instead put the city manager in there. Now, I don't want to get at why this happened or what I think happened. I mean, it could have been petty little personal things. It could have been a political reason, whatever. But I really feel that if this ordinance would have gone to the Human Relations Commission first, we probably would have had a better chance of reaching all the ethnic communities in the city involving their input, finding a way to find common ground and get an ordinance together or a law or something that would appeal to everybody, and then everyone could have some form of protection in the city, I mean, equal protection in the city.
Actually, there was one here. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't have much time, so I have to go, but since we started with the SWAT, sexual orientation for our advisory group, so as I said earlier, there was no discrimination in Hamtramck happened if you check the history, last 70 years. You'll not going to find any discrimination reported or happened. Okay, I condemn discrimination and everybody should have equal rights. But for some individuals, it became hard from them to accept the defeat in last historical election. Now is sexual orientation advisory group. But they call also SWAT. I was invited over here, that's why I came actually. Which is actually in my study, I found out this is a framework of some individuals. After the election, there was anger came out and posted on blogs, websites, and newspapers. I'm not going to mention on November 12, 2008, the Citizen newspaper posted by initial RS. He mentioned our fight to keep our human rights ordinance. This is after the November 4th election, after 1 week. I would like to make a challenge to each of you, let the education begin. He also said, it is very important now, more than ever, to establish a Human Relations Commission. I think the Human Relations Commission took Mr. R.'s advice. SWAT is nothing more than his idea. He said, let the education begin. I think Hamtramck people with talent and skills, and we should intend not to waste our talent and skills. Where was the HRC, Human Relations Commission, when the outsiders, not from inside, any people brought this ordinance, Triangle Foundation from outside brought this ordinance in Hamtramck City Council with the help of Scott Klein, our city councilman. They didn't discuss with the Human Relations Commission. They didn't talk to the people of Hamtramck. They violated the city charter, which is supposed to give 14 days to the city clerk's office for citizens to view the city charter. That's the process they did wrong. I think ordinance was defeated after that by ballot, and Hamtramck rejected the special rights. And I think Human Relations Commission has many other things to do without wasting our money and resources in the same track. The citizens of Hamtramck are adult enough, and I think Google will be their best to learn sexual orientation. And sexual orientation advisory by Google is free, and you can do it on your own time. Our Human Relations Commission has a lot of other things to do. So please accept the election results and respect our democratic system and let it go. And keep yourself off from dividing our city. That was my comments. Thanks.
Right, we'll take Mr. Zarafa, and then Chris, and then Mercedes, and then Mahfuz. Okay.
I respect my brother for his comments, even though I disagree with part of them. Respect is a two-way street. Okay? Let's start with that premise that, you know, I'm not demanding respect if I can't respect you first. But you also must respect me. That's the trade-off.
We have to be on equal footing. That's why we're sitting at the same table tonight. And although I wasn't involved too directly with the ordinance, I did address the city council early in that process. And I heard a videotape of the public forum that took place a few weeks prior to that city council meeting where the language was approved for the ballot. And from that taped meeting, there were a lot of hurtful and hateful comments made. And I felt afraid because of those comments. In fact, one comment was, we executed people like that in our country. That made me very, very afraid. This is not our American way of life. I know other people that were serving on that committee who had their tires slashed and, you know, hateful literature brought to their doors, and even phone threats that I heard that were made, and not by people of any particular ethnic community. This is not the way people in Hamtramck have always opened their arms to everybody that's come into this city. And yet many of these people of gay and lesbian orientation have lived among you for generations, and you just didn't know it. But they've been here, and they've been part of the fabric of this community, no matter what ethnic group they came from, or no matter what country their ancestors came from. So I suggest to you that, you know, the reason why we're here is to try to understand each other without condemnation. I think that's so important, that we don't condemn, but that we try, at least, even though we can't embrace each other yet, that we work toward that someday.
Thank you. And you thought that technology wasn't going to come back. I think Dr. Rahman mentioned Google there. So
I think, you know, kind of echoing Tom's comments, I think once we begin to understand the issues that each community in Hamtramck is facing, then we can build really common ground. For example, the Bengali American community continues to face profiling, and along with the Arab American community in Hamtramck. The African American community has been discriminated against in housing, and I think for people looking for you know, some of the divisiveness on election day, I went to the high school. I was just handing out literature, and a man came up to me. He looked me in the eye, and he told me I ought to be put to death. It's against God. And really, I you know, would say to people that once someone wants to do something that great to you, to kill you, and I have no doubt that if he could, he would have killed me, then surely the lesser act of discrimination is already evident. And I think each community, you know, needs to address, you know, the racism, the homophobia, and the Islamophobia that's, you know, evident in the community still to this day. And to simply dismiss and to say that we should just move on is really, I think, you know, just, we have to, you know, understand this issue and work to build bridges between communities instead of continued separation.
Thank you. Mercedes, I think.
Well, I think Tom and Greg said very nicely what I wanted to add to the discussion.
Okay, very good. Okay.
Thank you. We'll go to Mahfuz and then to Masud and then to Meyer.
Thank you. Actually, I showed my pink card. I disagreed with Mr. Rahman. I want to clear my standpoint. I think many of you know that I was a supporter of opposing this ordinance. I need to tell a story. After election, someone told me, I don't get it. Barack Obama got highest vote in Hamtramck, and this ordinance got lost. I said, yes, that's you didn't get this community. Even before election, 2 or 1 week before election, we had a care dinner. And I met care director, Dawood Wali, and I approached him. I just wanted to understand his perspective. He told me, I asked him that, what do you think of this, what's going on in Hamtramck? He said, I think our Muslim brothers are doing wrong. And then I was quiet. And then he said, I met Hamtramck mayor a few days ago, and she told me that Muslims, brothers, sisters are not understanding us, especially Bengali. Then I was very upset. I said, you know what? With due respect to everybody, shame on Mayor Karmaski. If she said that, shame on her. He said, why? I said, she's a mayor. What is the communication gap here? She needs to understand. She needs to understand what is our community want. What is the psychology of our community? Now, my point here is that, as again, I was opposing this ordinance because, as I said, the circumstances. But again, I said I have been advocate for everybody's right, and I have been Hamtramck Human Relations Commissioner, and then I spoke in, that in the way it was rally, I said that there was no discrimination. But while upon Mr. Rahman today, they say, I think we need to, as I think I have agreed with, we need to respect each other. And especially the language he used that let's accept the result of election. I think this is a little bit, I think a little bit disrespecting, because the people, there are 1,000 people those who vote in favor of ordinance. We have to respect them too, because they want it. And only thing, I think let's go back to our continuous discussion. We need to know each other. We need to, that's why I think as we started about technology, I was talking to some people that we need to sit down with each other. We need to have human touch. If I don't know you, you could be the greatest person in the world, but if I don't know you, if I didn't communicate with you, then I will all have perception that you might be bad. I myself had bad idea about Christian people before I came to America. Honestly, and we have, the whole Muslim world have different perception of Jewish people. But as we come, we know each other. Now I see many, Reverend Betty, I call her my sister. And point here is that we need to know each other, especially in a community like Hamtramck. Of course, again, I have been opposing the ordinance, and still I didn't change my standpoint really. But I talked to Greg, I talked to Richard, I had several email communication, and recently Greg sent me an email to me and Kamal. He mentioned something. I just told him that I need some time to respond. My point here is that Hamtramck is a community. We have to respect the history of this city. This is one of the reasons why I oppose this ordinance is the history of Hamtramck is also Polish community. So since Polish people, I don't want to go debate of this period again. I don't bring myself there. I know some people will point at me, but my understanding was that history of Hamtramck is also Polish tradition. So we need to respect this tradition as well. And I go to church. I went to church. I went to, what's the dinner called before Christmas? I forgot. Vigilian dinner. Vigilian dinner. I have attended Vigilian dinner. We have to know the history of this city. We have to know, like African American, even we have been in the Hamtramck Human Relations Commission. I heard from the African American history here. So we have to, again, I'm not only Muslim, I have studied Islam for almost 20 years. So what I'm trying to say is, I have love, respect, practice from Islam. At the same time, we have to respect Christian brothers and sisters here. We have to, even gay community is new here. So my point was that every transition time has time. It was too fast, and it was politics of Mr. Klein. That's the reason especially I was opposing this ordinance, because he did some politics. And that's the reason it was defeated. Dan Bhatti wrote an email, and I think he mentioned in MRDI email, he said that this is like some kind of defeat for religion. I was planning to reply him, but I didn't want to burn it. But let me answer to you. If it was embarrassing, it was because of Scott Klein. It was not because of Muslims, it is not because of Hamtramck citizens. It is because of Scott Klein or Hamtramck City Council. Shame on Hamtramck City Council. They failed to understand the citizen of Hamtramck. They failed to understand psychology of the Hamtramck people. So please, Muslim, Christian, Polish, Muslim, Arab, Bengali, we don't have any problem. We never had problem in many years. But those who brought this politics, those who brought this dispute, they are responsible for this.
Thank you. I think we had two over here. By the way, just one small point. He was referring to Reverend Sharon Buttrey as his sister. I know you might have wondered about that slightly, Reverend Buttrey.
You know, what we have to do is learn to agree to disagree. And a lot of people got upset when our president now said he would go to sit down and talk with other people. If you don't sit down and talk with people, regardless of whatever it is, you don't know their side, and they don't know your side. But if you sit down and you talk together face to face, then you can come to some agreement. It might not be all of what you want, but if you can come to agreement to agree to get along together. Now, as far as, I don't like to say it, but as far as people, personal, whatever they do personally, I don't think myself that I should be involved in it, because what you do personal in your life, that's up to you, and that's been going on since time began. So you know, but it's just that Scott Klein and that whole council, they don't know their heads from a hole in the ground, and they need to be replaced. There are enough people here now in the city, population-wise, to put somebody new in there, and not just themselves, other people that work to make this city like it used to be, because it doesn't. Joseph Campo looks like a ghetto. There's so many stores that are vacant because people won't come in because the taxes they put too much tax on them. Look at the snow. We didn't get but one last year when we had the snow. We got one time they came down and put salt down. They didn't do no more. This year we didn't get anything. I had went to the inauguration, and when I got back, I called, and my granddaughter said, "Grandma, I've been out 3 times and shoveled snow, so I'll have a spot to get in when I come from work." And then other people see it's vacant, so they park in it. But we don't get anything for our taxes, and we don't get any consideration when you go to the council meetings. If you go, she sits there leaning down on the desk. I've asked her, I don't know how many times, about the light at Edward and Buffalo. In the 60s, we fought. I was going to the council meetings twice a week, on Tuesday night and Thursday morning, because something happened. Somebody got hurt there, and we had a lot of kids going to school, and you got that school on Buffalo now. Those kids are in the middle of the street. The cars don't stop at the stop sign. I told them to have them put that light on. The light stayed up there. Now they've taken the light down. It's terrible. And you got to realize that God made all of us, and it's only one supreme being in my eyesight. But people call him in different names because they come from different countries, and that's what they do. But it wasn't meant that you should be against. They said treat people like you want to be treated. And this is, you know, to me, if somebody told me what to do, and I was married for 57 years, like in 2 months, before my husband died. And we had 4 children, two sons and 2 daughters. The girls are the oldest. The oldest one was 65 yesterday. And my son was a captain in the Vietnam War. He got wounded, and I only heard about it not a year ago. It hasn't been a year. But now they're saying they're going to recognize that he was up for the Distinguished Service Cross. But it's just that everybody's a human being, and all they have is their feelings. And people should understand that. And I'm not saying one way or the other, but the people, it's already in the Constitution that everybody has civil rights. Of course, we know we didn't have ours for years and centuries, but yet and still, that's in the Constitution, so why should it have to be rewritten?
Right. Thank you.
What I want to talk about is our human relations that we have now. In 2005, someone had submitted my name to the U.S. Justice Department to come to a meeting in Hamtramck and help write an ordinance for the human relations and work with Mr. Myers. The name of the gentleman was Mr. Caniff, or Burke, and he was a conciliation specialist from the U.S. Justice Department. So I worked with Mr. Myers, and we got ordinance passed to establish, created the Human Relations Commission. And from what I have understood from Mr. Myers, when this was going on, that he was not contacted. And I'm wondering why he was not contacted. Because we did work on that ordinance. And I received this letter from the Justice Department. They said, "Dear Mrs. Meyer, thank you very much for sharing the enclosed information during the development of the Hamtramck Human Relations Commission ordinance. Your participation, contributions were greatly appreciated. We hope that we'll continue to work and it will be valuable. I will continue to be valuable to our community, and thank you again." All right, we worked and got the ordinance through. Why was not the Human Relations Commission contacted to work this particular problem out? I was wondering that. And number 2, I have some things I want to share with you also. When I was a young lady, I lived here in the city of Hamtramck. I graduated from Hamtramck High School. Had gone on to business school, took the civil service examination, and I was hired by the civil service office to work in their office. Our offices were separated in the community at that time, and when I worked in the civil service office and had the mail to take across the street to the clerk's office to be mailed, I did not have a name. And that is a fact. When I would walk in that office, it was always "Good morning, y'all." And that is the truth. I would go home and say to my mother, I couldn't understand it. And I went to school with some of the same people that were working for the city, but yet my name was y'all. So I decided one day that I would try to resolve this problem myself. And when I was called, yo, I would say, and with a smile, well, my name is not yo. My name is Yvonne Hill. That went on for a while. I had to resolve my own problem. Nobody had to go there. I didn't have to go to the commission and report anyone. I didn't have to go talk to my mother to come down there and be a grown young lady to talk for me. I went home and I prayed about my situation. And I worked for those people for years and years and came to supervise the water department. I got many friends from that. And it's just by being nice yourself and be a person and let people know what you are all about. And so sometimes in a community when situations exist like this, if we go through the right procedures of doing it, and if we would pray to the Almighty God, and we were saying about spirituality, yes, we do have to have spirituality. And then I'm wondering another reason I want to ask you this. Where were the black ministers? I didn't see any of the black ministers. Were they asked to be a part of this? I didn't see the churches or the church I go to. They didn't mention anything about it. Did you hear anything about it, Titus? He goes to the same church I go. I didn't hear anything about it. Where are the other black people? Whenever something is called in this community, it seems like it's Miss Burke and it's Mrs. Woods and it's Mrs. Meyer. Do any of you see anybody else in the community come to any of the meetings? Do you know any of the people in this community beside Miss Burke, Mrs. Woods, and Mrs. Meyer? Have you made friends with anybody? And let us know, would you invite me to your home on Sunday to have dinner and sit with your wife and family at the table and eat? Would you do that? Ask yourself. You don't have to shake your head one way or the other. Ask yourself the question. Ask yourself. And I think we should recognize our Human Relations Commission. It was established. I think we should recognize the black ministry in the community and let them know. And ask any black person walking the street and say, do you know what happened to ordinance so-and-so, so-and-so? They wouldn't even know anything about it. Some of this you bring on yourself. Treat everybody like you love to be treated. And the Lord said, love thy neighbor as thyself. That will resolve all our problems. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Myrick. You said earlier that you wear many hats, but I like the one you're wearing tonight. I don't just mean this one. You know what, in the interest of time, because we only have about 5 minutes left, and out of deference to those who haven't spoken before, if you don't mind, I'll just go ahead and give Kamal and also Greg, and Barb a chance to take a comment briefly, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up, and hopefully that will give us enough food for thought for a second meeting.
And Arif a little bit.
Arif, you've been there.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Again, I think the Gregory said it earlier, that law alone, the rules and regulations alone on the book does not help. He said Muslims and Bengalis and all the minorities are being discriminated against. So there is the answer. Having something rewritten, having something put on the book, unless you apply it, it makes no sense. I think if somebody threatens me with my life, the first thing I would do, go to a police station if I know the person and report it. Why wouldn't I do that? Why am I not using existing laws to protect me? Why am I trying to make something different? And how is that going to protect me if somebody is going to kill me before that? Nothing personal, but I just want to make sure that understanding the law and applying it also important. But in some cases, selective application is the biggest threat of civil liberty, especially in America. I'll use this as an example. Everyone probably have this, universal human rights. Now, this one supposed to protect human rights all over the world. What do we see in Gaza? We see children's bodies being torn apart with thousands of pounds worth of bombs dropping or have dropped for weeks. This one did not protect anybody. In Rwanda, hundreds of thousands of people got killed. Did the international law protect anybody? No. Understanding and applying the law is the only way to approach it. And I think the biggest challenge for the homosexuality in Hamtramck is the effort to trying to make it into law. I think that has alienated the community more than it has ever did in the community before. And the reason I say that is someone used an example that there is no documented anti-homosexual cases in Hamtramck. And I'm not saying there aren't any. I just didn't see any. Now, does that mean that this is the only thing that exists and everything else is okay? I mean, do we have African American community being discriminated against? The law is on the book. The Muslims, the law is on the book. It protects everyone. We need to see what is out there for us already. My concern in Hamtramck, if I am a Hamtramck homeowner, my concern is not somebody renting. I don't care if he is gay, Baptist, Muslim, non-Muslim, doesn't matter. I want to make sure that I get my rent on time. I am not even going to ask, do you pray on time? Do you drink? That's not my business. If I am getting paid right now, the most important thing is I am going to pay my mortgage. Things like that. And I think the biggest challenge for the community is the race relations. People are fighting, and thank you, Ms. Vera, for bringing this up in our last meeting. That African American students, the Arabic students, are fighting every day. This is a real threat to life. They're fighting, they're stabbing each other. The police cannot control this. I think we should address issues like that that's actually dripping real blood on the street. We should go out. Yes, we go out and meet our neighbors. And we all work with people of different races. We already know how to work it. African American, homosexuals, Polish, we all know how to live it. We just need to start respecting each other. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go with Greg, and then we'll finish up with Barb. Okay, is it Greg?
It's okay. I'm right here.
What's that? I'm sorry. I can't.
I agree with most of the things that have been said over here, but I would like to kind of go back to the history a little bit and just explain, for instance, why some of us have taken positions we have. As we define the community, this community has been working together and has been diverse for many years, and hardly any problems have been around. There have been problems, but they have not that big. In schools, that's probably the biggest problem with the kids. But when this ordinance came about, it was kind of thrown into this community without any participation of the grassroots. People have not been informed, they have not discussed, they have not been educated what's happening. And when a flawed and a badly written ordinance comes in, and it repeats, it says, it reaffirms, basically same thing that the state Elliott Larson law provides. with minor difference, with just 3 words put in there. Actually, there was 3 words in a phrase. But the 3 words, something that scared a lot of us who have lived in this community for many, many years. And we were looking for protections, basically, because when somebody tells us that from when this ordinance passes, now people that have a different, let's say, attire, if they walk around nude or whatever, they're protected. People that express, let's say, their homosexuality openly on the streets or in the parks, that expression is protected. Or if they behave, because otherwise you don't know when if someone is homosexual, unless they behave in a manner that kind of exposes that. And now, when that is protected, well, what will protect the kids of this community from bad examples? We wouldn't want anyone to promote that kind of behavior in the schools, among the children, and that really scared this community. That divided this community along the lines, and this is why these differences came about. This is why there was a problem. Anyway, the protections that this ordinance offered, they were not for what has been said. They're not for the Muslim community, they're not for the black community. Those protections are already in the state and the federal laws. The only difference that this ordinance had was the protection for the gay, and it never mentioned it. It was stealth. The newspapers, local newspapers, did not say one word about this until after the ordinance lost. Now, when Councilman Shahab, when I approached him along with every single councilman and the mayor, he said, okay, let's sit down with the attorney and let's discuss the things that bother you in this ordinance. And Scott Klein says, no, we don't have to discuss. It's going to be as it is. Because by the way, the attorney who represented the city, who wrote this badly written ordinance, he also represents, or his firm represents, the Triangle Foundation. They represent the people that are pushing for these for the gay rights. So there was a conflict of interest right there. And those are the types of things that brought this division into our community. If we were able to sit down before the vote and talk about those things, talk about the give and take, discuss the things that we wanted to discuss, probably it would have never happened. This kind of meeting should have been held before the ordinance was forced on Hamtramck.
Why don't we just go ahead and we'll conclude with Barb.
I know there's a lot of pressure on you.
I guess I want to say that I'm a Roman Catholic sister, and one of the things that I'm proudest of my church about is that in many countries where there are people that are singled out, that are scapegoated, that are persecuted, there's usually a human relations or civil rights institute that my church will be a part of, will be part of the leadership. And that has been very consistent. El Salvador, all kinds of places, and where people actually will risk their lives to stand up for the people that have been targeted as, disappeared. And I really appreciate the comment about, your comment about the fear. And I think that's one of the things I wish I could have stopped in this process, was the stereotyping, the kinds of things you were worried about, nudity, and I've heard bestiality, I've heard horrible things that are so distorted, that are so badly based, that are basically lies, distortions and lies, and that makes me feel very unhappy. And I think as part of the invitation that I don't know if it was Mahfuz or someone mentioned about learning about the culture and all of that, the one comment I would make is the American Psychological Association at one time thought that homosexuality was an aberration. And in 1984, or sometime like that, came to the understanding that sexual orientation is a natural kind of thing for people. and same-sex attraction is not an aberration, it's not an abnormality. Now, you may disagree with that, that may be against what you personally believe, but in terms of U.S. American culture, this is what we have come to. And so I guess I just would join that call. I mean, I need to be educated more, and I would invite all of us to be educated together and to hear one another. Thank you.
Well, unfortunately, our bigger adversary and the one that seems to divide us all is time. And we have, in fact, run out of that for this evening. I'm sorry, I can't take any more.
I have a comment.
I can't take any more questions. I'm sorry.
It's just, if you told me that, I will not come. If you told me that you're going to control me and give somebody 20 minutes to talk, and you say this is justice, and you call that as justice, is the way you like it. The person you like him, you're going to let him talk much he want. The person you focus on
it has to do with 9 o'clock. But if you'd like to speak,
I guess so.
Please.
Okay.
First of all, I'm not sure I understand what.
What is it? You're not going to understand till when I talk. How are you going to understand what I want to say?
I'm not trying to silence you in any way. I've given you an opportunity to talk.
Okay, you're not giving.
There are people who had spoken.
I will take my brother time. My brother Arif, I will take his time.
It's not just Arif's time, brother. There were other people who had their cards raised, but I couldn't address them because
I was the first one raised after you the last one. Now you wasting time to talk, and then let me talk.
Please.
First of all, is all the religions is against races. No matter who they are, what they worship, all the believers, they are against races. So when you say you mix in also nationality and you mix in behavior, it cannot come when you say Bangladesh, Polish, Arab, and then you put behavior is like nationality. That is not it. Homosexual is not national. It's some individual person has come like that. Now, we are talking, we support everyone right. But we make sure that person right is not his right, what he asking is not taking somebody else right. To give him his right, to take it somebody else right. And as nature you're speaking, the right for homosexual where they ask right is a woman right by nature, and they are taking it away from her. And that's why you see a lot of people is not like to marry, because they find somebody where he can fulfill his feeling outside and go to the natural way. And that's what I was going to say, and thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank Bill, and I'd like to thank
you, Bill,
for the invitation to be able to host and to meet all of you.
Could I just add a quick sum up in terms of
and
where we end?
I was going to go ahead and turn it back over to Fred, but again, thank you so much for your participation.
Just very briefly, I think we realize that we are not at a conclusion here. This is in a way only a beginning, because I hear a lot of unresolved issues still hanging. And it's up to you to figure out what you want to do next. I would point out, though, that there are interesting background issues that we haven't really touched. For instance, the question of fear. I heard the question of fear raised, lots. And it is a point that we sometimes don't appreciate, that in the Nazi regime in Germany, it wasn't just Jews, it wasn't just socialists, it wasn't just Roma or gypsies, it wasn't just disabled, but it was also homosexuals who were subject to extermination. And so there is historical precedent for fear and concern. There is also historical precedent for opinions about that. But these are questions that must be realized, and when I said solving a problem together, it really is the question of how can we deal with these legitimate questions of fear and distrust and concern on these various sides, and how can we actually solve those problems together? That's what I'd like to leave you with tonight, a challenge or a question to you. What could be done in a concrete fashion, putting aside this question about this particular ordinance, what could be done in a concrete fashion to solve the actual human questions that people are so concerned about here, fear being a key one. Fear of loss of housing, fear of loss of freedom, fear even of loss of life, because it has happened elsewhere. Doesn't mean it happened in Hamtramck, but that, I think, is partly the reason why people are coming in with these proposals. By the way, I would also mention historically, in the South, the civil rights movement was considered as an outside agitation in small towns and villages and towns where the people had not been fully consulted by those who came in and campaigned. So this format has precedent in American history, and the question you have to face in Hamtramck is how will you deal with this format and this issue, because you really cannot be fully isolated from it. It is a national issue. It's even an international issue. And it will impinge in this community as well. So the question is, can you deal with it in a positive and constructive way? And that's what I would like to leave with you and maybe Bill at this moment.
Thank you.
Okay, yes. I'd like to thank you once again, each and every one of you, for participating. This was a challenge for some people, and I really appreciate you coming here and contributing. But especially to Fred Pearson and Saeed Khan, who came in to help us as outsiders. We needed their help. Their impartial help, and I appreciate it. But I did have one sentence here that I wanted to read off the core principles that you all have a copy of. We have a new president in this country who expresses hope to everybody, to many people. He's a president of inclusion. He's a president that's open for dialogue. He's a person that is willing to talk to anybody regardless of what their position is and try to find common ground. On the top of this core principles it says, no one is exempt from the call to find common ground. That's what President Obama said. And I think we should help support him in that quest. And we all love this town, and we all are a family. This is Hamtramck. We're all brothers and sisters. And let's hope to find a way to live together and understand our differences and see what we have in common. We all want security. We all want safety. We all want happiness in our life. So thank you for joining us. We're going to continue this process. And the next stage, we'll have public events where everybody will be invited. This was a select group of just 2 or 3 people that we each invited. There's many more people in this community who want to help and can support us in this quest for common ground. So thank you, and enjoy the rest of your week.